There are a few games that generally get me hyped for its eventual release nowadays, and I've got to say, Rebel Wolves: The Blood of Dawnwalker is one of those games. Medieval, dark fantasy, swords, vampires, high production value showcases, world building both in and out of game, and combined together, a bundle of hype that I am 100% behind as both a fan and developer. And because of that, we're going to take a look at mainly the lighting and artistic breakdowns of this game's production footage and ask one very important question. Why does the Blood of Dawnwalker Trailer Edition look like this? Big thank you to the Patreon supporters. You can support from £1 a month or join the channel member tier for exclusive game dev videos, guest talks, and Discord server access. Let's get started. So first thing is, from an environmental point of view, this shot is really cool because the trees flow down, the terrain flows kind of up, even the clouds, which this may be purposeful, but even then, everything is flowing down, sort of into the building of where you want to look. There's something not demonic happening here, I'm very curious as to how this would work in gameplay, because if you walk inside here and in here, it's going to be just a big red bright light. So are they going to fade it out with a blueprint? What sort of magic are they going to do? Can you even go inside this? Maybe you can't. Maybe that's why it's got the red on. But yeah, good tree placement that leads the eye down into some of this work. This cinematic shot, cool technique, silhouettes the character into the shot. I love this shot because I learned about this shot working on UD, so I kind of found it funny how kind of similar these shots were. I remember being taught this technique at On Until Dawn, where originally I had this character quite lit, and then the feedback was, okay, make sure to silhouette so that the eye goes in to what you're looking at, and we see that here as well. The eye is going in to what we're looking at, so it's just a really cool way. Like, I found it, the similarities between those two I found pretty cool, so I was really happy to see this shot. Character, darker background, and then there is a light. I don't know where it is, it's hard to tell from the shadow, but maybe there's some sort of light that is highlighting this character to pop it out of the background as well. The eyes tell a lot. So what's interesting is the light type changes depending on the trailer. So what I mean by that is, we'll get into that in a moment, but it shows that either two different people have lit this at different times in the project, or the workflow changed for how they were lighting. So yeah, we can see here we've got at least two. There's probably more, but also cool subsurface scattering here, really cool. But we can see that we have sort of two spotlights with a very small radius, source radius, which means you get a sharper fall off with light and reflection. If those orbs were really big, you would get a much softer look, which is probably not what you want to have for this game, right? You want to have that sharp, nitty gritty look. So it looks like we've got one up here, hitting the character, causing quite a separating this plane of the head out, and then another one maybe up here casting down, and then there's probably a fill light all the way back here, which is isn't getting caught in the eye. That's my best guess. We see the same here, right? We have split lighting, these little red orbs in the eyes. So this is all shadow. This is basically 50-50 shadow, right? Maybe a little bit of rim light catching the head here. The eyes on this one, this is where I was, guessing that these two have been lit by different people or at different points in the project. Because in here, we have rectangular lights, what it looks like. Two rectangle lights, which, by the way, rectangle lights are visually amazing, but extremely expensive. So I've usually seen rectangular lights used on title screens, character select screens, not in-game cinematics, because once you enable ray tracing on them especially, they get even more expensive. So this, we have some rect lighting here, but here we have spotlights. So spotlights are cheaper, lighter, more flexible. Rect lights are less flexible and more expensive, but they can give you a better visual quality if you get it lined up correctly. They're like soft boxes in film. So that was pretty curious. I'm wondering what happened with that. It's at different points in the project, but it's a very cool little sign that you can tell from the eyes. This is more about gameplay, but I didn't like this really in the trailer. I thought it was a bit weird. it just suddenly stops gameplay and you cast the spell. I think it would be much better personally if it went into slow motion, so the gameplay was carrying on, and then you cast out, kind of like Max Payne slow mo. That's the only real non-art thing that I was not too like. I didn't really find it like cool or anything like that. I found it a bit disruptive to the gameplay. But again, they're probably going to fix that in the future. Back to lighting. Again, we have maybe a light here and a light here. This one is softer and wider. This one is shorter and stronger. So we have a light that is sort of casting out onto this side of the face. And then there's a bigger orb here, which is very subtle. So it's probably a much larger source that is casting a softer light on the side of the face. Also, I just love the attention to detail that the ears have this super subtle subsurface scattering. Obviously, we have a rim light at the back to separate from the background, a depth of field background, which helps focus on the character. Really cool cinematic. This shot, this is one of the mysteries to me, how this is done. So either it is a point light with a high attenuation with shadows on each chandelier, which is expensive, but point lights are expensive, but it doesn't mean that you should never use them. There are times and places you can use them. Just remember that, one point light with shadows is, equivalent to 6 spotlights with shadows. So if you can achieve something in 2 to 3 spotlights versus 1 point light, you're going to be good to go. Now, usually we would use a point light without shadows, but I see a lot of shadow on the side here, and also the outer chandelier is in shadow. So I'm very curious about that. So, is it, for example, are there spotlights here on the edges that are casting up? Or is it a single point light with a higher attenuation? Very curious about that. But no, it's one of those. But yes, I was very curious about that on the chandelier because it looked really cool. Usually with torches, we, again, can't afford to cast a shadow on every torch with a point light. So this is most likely this shadow here is most likely a light function, which is a cookie, a gobo. It's basically a black and white texture that can attach to a light. You can have shadows disabled on that light and fake the shadow with a 2D texture. We see the same thing here as well. Now, I'm guessing this is a light function and not a dynamic shadow light. I could be wrong because it is kind of clipping up on the sides here as well, which is interesting. But yeah, there are a lot of these sort of torches around the level. So I would, if that's, maybe there are some custom tech here, because I'm imagining if that's a point light every time, that does add up expense-wise. So this could be a gobo on a spotlight, maybe a smaller point light with no shadows, or it could just legitimately be one point light with a higher attenuation, with a light function on. Either way, it could be those, because I don't see it fading out as much. So, but very cool though, very cool. But here, there's the nighttime did seem a bit dark on my monitor. I've struggled with nighttime before in production environments. However, I really like this sort of stuff. I just wish there was more of it. Like this whole box that I'm drawing here is kind of like a missed opportunity for me. So I would, again, this is just what I would do. They're probably going to do it. They might not do it. They might disagree with it. I'm just giving them my sort of opinions, right? I would have had a bit more, fake moonlighting coming across this building. Because when you light a tall subject, half in light, half in shadow, it creates much more sense of drama in that sort of case. Again, I think this is a texture. Really cool lighting in here as well. Yeah, maybe they are just doing point lights and considering the cost, saying 2 point lights here, and then we calm down on the lights around, or maybe it is spotlights. It could be a few. There is a sort of light response here, so you can see the roughness of the floor has quite a lot of interaction. Usually, you achieve that by having a light up here that casts directly down into the hallway. And then you can change the source radius to get, these sort of material responses. So I'm guessing that there is a light somewhere up here casting down into the floor, which is a really cool technique to do as well. Yeah, it's nice soft shadowing. The lights that come from the windows, I'm gonna guess maybe it's spotlights, I'm not sure. Or maybe it is the directional light. But there are coloured shadows on the ground in these areas that I noticed. And the way to get coloured shadows is to use light functions or a light function atlas, which enables you to do sort of RGB colouring on light functions. So I'm assuming that there are spotlights up here on each window. Again, could be wrong, happy to be wrong. It's just my best guess. So yeah, that's my general thoughts mainly on mostly the lighting. The environmental art is kind of your standard stuff, right? Tiling textures, vertex blends, very cool art direction overall. I'm super hyped for this game. I can't wait for it to come out. It's one of the most looking forward to games on my sort of list. Hence why we are breaking down a lot of the lighting and doing a relight of it. So yeah, that's my general thoughts on Rebel Wolves Dawnwalker game. We'll obviously catch up in about a year when the game comes out and have a proper look at it, but super hyped for it. I think they're doing great stuff. And yeah, any questions, leave them below. I'll see you in a bit.